Over the weekend, the big political news was that Lauren Boebert lost a straw poll in her newly adopted 4th Congressional District. Now, does this mean anything in the grand scheme of things? Absolutely not. It doesn't. And we're going to get into that in a second. But just to bring you up to speed as to what happened with Lauren Boebert, in 2022, most of you already know this, she barely won her 3rd Congressional District seat, which is a somewhat Republican seat. It has a Cook partisan rating of +7. So even if she didn't dominate the race, she should have won it with some ease, but she didn't, and she almost lost. And with the Republicans having a very, very small majority in Congress right now, there could have been a likelihood that she would have lost that race in a presidential year general election against a well-financed Democratic candidate. Therefore, her future in the 3rd Congressional District was looking as if it was ending. She was also getting some strong Republican opposition within the district as well, which really was putting the noose around her candidacy. However, Congressman Buck of the 4th Congressional District went ahead and retired, and Lauren Boebert just switched from the 3rd Congressional District to the 4th Congressional District. Now, this is very unprecedented. Unless there is some sort of specific reason, an incumbent during a non-redistricting year usually wouldn't change from one district to another. That just never happens. That's just not the way things happen. But she went ahead and did it, and now she's running in the 4th Congressional District, which is way more Republican than even her 3rd Congressional District. Now let's go ahead and talk about the straw poll, because if straw polls actually meant anything, then Rand Paul would have been the Republican nominee for president in 2016. We all know how that went. And so they're not scientific polls, and there's no indication whatsoever the way a straw poll goes is the way that the electorate will go, because it isn't really the electorate. Now, straw polls can be done in a few ways. In this situation that we have with Lauren Boebert, the straw poll was very, very local. It was conducted by the Republican women of Weld County, outside of the congressional district that Lauren Boebert is actually running in. So this is a county that encompasses 2 congressional districts, the 8th Congressional District and the 4th Congressional District. So this is a very, very small microcosm of a very, very small microcosm of people who are probably mostly involved with Republican Party politics anyway. And with Lauren Boebert being somebody who's more of a populist candidate that doesn't rely on the mover and shakers within the Republican Party for her votes, then this shows why it's not indicative of what the vote might be eventually. The other type of straw polls are ones that are done at large national or statewide conventions, and in those situations, usually the special interests are in charge of how the vote goes. So, for example, in the 1991 Florida Democratic Party convention, there was a straw poll for the presidency in 1992. Now, Tom Harkin, who had a lot of labor support, finished a strong second in that poll. However, he finished 5th in the primaries and didn't even make it to the Florida primary when it came to that time. So it wasn't indicative of how Tom Harkin would eventually do, which is unfortunate because I was a big Tom Harkin supporter at the time. So it would have been nice if he actually would have been able to take that and move it and make it into something. But overall, these straw polls don't mean anything. Now, another thing you need to know about straw polls too is that you need to, in many cases, unless it's a big convention, and even then you usually have to pay a fee to go to the convention, you usually have to pay to be a part of these polls. Now, luckily in the United States, we don't have to pay to vote yet, but, to be involved with these polls, you need to actually pay to attend. So this in and of itself shows that this is a limited electorate, that if you have the money to pay to vote, then you can go ahead and participate in that. And also in the case of this straw poll that they had, the number of participants was limited. So after it was sold out, nobody else could participate. That would just be kind of like a polling booth saying, "No, we had our 100 voters for today. No, nobody after that can vote." So it was limited in its scope. It was limited in who could vote. It was limited as far as geography was concerned, and so on. Now, one of the problems with the straw poll is that Again, it was held by the Republican women of Weld, who were doing straw polls for 2 congressional races, the 8th Congressional District and the 4th Congressional District. Now, all indications are that if you paid, you could then vote in the straw poll, which means that a lot of residents from the 8th Congressional District might have voted in the 4th Congressional District straw poll. On top of that, and we don't know, people from all over the state or all over the nation could come to this. Somebody from Salt Lake City could have probably paid, gone there, and voted in the straw poll. So there wasn't a quality control, and we really don't know how many people from the 4th Congressional District actually participated in the straw poll. We just don't know. So to say that this is some sort of representation of how the voters of the 4th Congressional District thinks, we don't even know how many people within the 4th Congressional District actually voted in that poll. And that's kind of a big oops if you're going to be reporting on the straw poll. So can we glean anything from this straw poll? The answer is really no. It doesn't show whether she has broad support or specific support or anything like that, because the straw poll in and of itself is flawed, and they always are flawed, and they always will be flawed. So if anybody says that a straw poll says something, take that with the largest grain of salt that you can find, because it usually is not indicative of what the electorate's going to vote when the primary or the election comes around anyway. But there are some things we might be able to glean out of this that can give us a little bit more of an idea of Lauren Boebert's campaign. So, for example, one of the things that V.O. Key talks about in his book about Southern politics is the idea of localism, that if you have a bunch of candidates who are not well known in a district, that the candidates will build support around certain areas of the county. So let's say you are from Johnson County. You're going to do well in Johnson County compared to doing well in, let's say, Phillips County, okay? In this localism aspect could play an important role in this campaign. Now, with Lauren Boebert, she really doesn't have a local base. There's nowhere where she can say, my home is here. This is where I'm from. These are my voters. She lacks that, unlike the other candidates in the district. However, because she is so known at the national stage, it might not even matter, and the localism issue might not even be a thing. And another thing is, with so many candidates actually running in this election, the localism aspect might be popping up for a bunch of candidates, where Lauren Boebert might have broad support amongst all the counties and all the electorate. So she might not necessarily score high in the primary, but there's a good chance that she will actually maybe finish first with a lower amount of the vote, due to the fact that no other candidate can coalesce support behind them. Chances are they're just going to be competing in their local areas. And considering this is a district that goes all the way to the north to all the way to the south of Colorado, means that it's very likely that we'll see this localism aspect focus and really coalesce, and that should give Lauren Boebert kind of an advantage in this race. The second thing, and even though they sold this straw poll or this event they were doing, they sold it out the day after Lauren Boebert said she was making the switch, I wonder about her organization, because if you are an organization and a well-funded organization with experience, you should have been on top of this. They should have been buying those tickets to that straw poll, because they know that if she lost that straw poll, or if she came in 5th like she did, that's going to be in the news cycle for a while. And yet they didn't even think of this. They didn't even concentrate on the fact of the bad publicity that would come out of this. Now, maybe they think what I think, which is, okay, it's going to be bad and in the news for the next, week. And then after that, it's going to blow over and no one's going to think about it. And that's what's going to happen. Like I said, by the time that I release this video, it might even be outdated, because we've moved on to different things that have happened either with Lauren Boebert or different things that have happened with the electorate in general. So this video in and of itself might already be outdated. That's just how fast the news cycle works. So my final thoughts on this is that this doesn't mean anything. So as much as Democrats and others want to say this is the doom and gloom of Lauren Boebert, chances are that it's not. Now, if there's, let's say, a Denver Post poll that comes out that shows her being 5th amongst voters using actual scientific methods of polling and of public opinion, yes, then that would be a worry. But some straw poll with a little bit over 100 people who might not even live in the district who had to pay for the poll, this doesn't mean anything. This isn't an indication of anything because it's not her voters, possibly. So this is a big, huge grain of salt when looking at this poll. You shouldn't take this poll as being serious. And again, the problem might be is that a lot of people might be taken serious and it's not. Now, will the Democrats win if Boebert's the nominee? No. Now, this one is way, way more safe than her old 3rd congressional district. So she's going to be fine. And at the end, I think unless something happens, I think she's going to win the primary. She might not get 50%. She might get in the 30s because of so many candidates in there. But with those candidates having their local support maybe spread throughout the state, as long as she maintains a level of, let's say, 30 to 35% support amongst all counties, she'll probably win it. Again, unless support coalesces behind one candidate at the end, kind of like what we're seeing in the Republican primary with Nikki Haley and Donald Trump, though that's not necessarily working well for Haley. All right, so that's all I wanted to talk about. Please, if you like this, go ahead, go to my Patreon, support this. I'm going to be doing more videos, and subscribe, hit the bell so that you get notifications where we talk about elections and to get you up to date on what's happening in the world of American elections. Thank you all very much. I'll see you later on. Have a wonderful day wherever it is you are, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.